Congress votes to hold one of its own, former lawmaker and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, in contempt. Meanwhile, federal lawmakers hold court in Chicago for a hearing on the city's high violence. And joining us to talk about all of this and more are Congresswoman Robin Kelly, a Democrat from Madison, Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Chicago's North Side, and Congressman Danny Davis, a Democrat from Chicago's West Side. We did invite every member of Illinois' Republican delegation to join us tonight, and they declined our request. But as always, we thank you three for being here. You all attended this committee hearing in Chicago about violence yesterday. Congressman Davis, did you come away with any consensus from the participants on solutions to the problem this year?
I think we did, and I want to thank Senator Durbin for holding it. I think we all agree that guns, the presence of guns, the availability of guns, the ability for all kinds of people to acquire guns, that if we could reduce the number of guns in our society, if we could stop the gun trafficking. Illinois has some good laws, but we're right next to other states that you can go and acquire a gun in Indiana, bring it back to Illinois. Many of the crimes that are committed, especially homicides, if there was no gun present, I guarantee you that people would be alive and thriving.
Congresswoman Kelly, this would take some kind of federal action. The House has passed gun control measures, but they seem to be DOA in the evenly divided Senate. Is there any hope in Washington for any kind of laws to address these problems?
You are so correct about that. We've passed the universal background law twice, and the law closing the Charleston loophole twice. But as you said, it's gone nowhere in the Senate. Senator Durbin did seem to have some hope that we could get trafficking and straw purchasing possibly passed with this Senate. I know they would pass in the House of Representatives, but he seemed to think it would pass in the Senate because that is a big part of the problem, trafficking and straw purchasing, as my colleague just shared, and with the weak gun laws in states like Wisconsin and Indiana and Mississippi, to name a few.
Hey. And Congressman Quigley, there are a lot of folks that believe, including the mayor and Chicago police superintendent, that another prong of the problem is what they view as weak prosecution from the Cook County State's attorney and problems in sentencing and bail from Cook County judges. Did that come up at the hearing?
It didn't come up in the parts that I was involved with. Look, I think it's a comprehensive approach. I'm glad that the federal prosecutors are involved, but this has to work at the state and local and federal level. And if there's a failure between any of them, we're not going to get the job done.
Congressman Quigley, I want to stay with you here on this issue of former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, a vote to hold him in contempt for failing to appear before the January 6th committee in the House. He did turn over text messages from Fox cable personalities imploring the president to get his supporters to stop rioting on that day. What else do you think that committee could learn from Mr. Meadows' testimony?
Well, first of all, pretty eye-opening that the president, his family, members of the Fox community, they understood fully how serious this was. Obviously, that day and the days after, Mr. McConnell and Mr. McCarthy recognized the responsibility lay at the president's feet for instigating this riot. So I think we're going to learn a lot more about who's responsible and how to hold them accountable. And by the way, the fact that they said the National Guard was going to be used to protect the Trump people who later on attacked the Capitol is probably the most disturbing thing I've learned so far.
We'll see how this affects Mr. Meadows' testimony and what else is learned from this committee. Still so much to be gleaned. I want to move to the economy, Congressman Davis. An otherwise robust economic recovery is marred a bit by inflation showing a 7% price increase over last year. First of all, how is this impacting your constituents?
Well, let me just say this, that the economy is on the way back, and I believe that the policies of the administration, especially to get money in the hands of people who are going to spend every dime of it that they get, the child tax credits, the earned income tax credit increase. Every bit of that money is going to go right back into the economy, and we're going to see the impact of it. So I think that we're going to be fine in terms of policies that are moving the economy upwards. And yeah, we see a little bit of an increase every once in a while, but if you've got the resources to handle it, then you can do it.
And Congressman, you're speaking, of course, of the president's policy goal of that $2 trillion social spending bill termed as Build Back Better. Let's hear what the president had to say about that.
Build Back Better bill is not going to increase inflation. It will diminish inflation. It has a negative impact on inflation. It doesn't raise inflation. But that's hard for people to think about right now because inflation is up.
Congresswoman Kelly, this is still where it's been for the last seemingly better part of a year, in that everyone's waiting to see what two moderate senators, Manchin and Sinema, want to do about it. But part of this is a child care tax credit, which, as it stands now, expires at the end of the year. Will there be any action on that as a standalone, perhaps?
We're hoping that it will be in the Build Back Better Act when it passes in the Senate, and assuming that it's going to come back to us because there's going to be some changes. But we're hoping that's one of the provisions that stays within that act and that it is extended. It's very important. It has helped many families, and I'm hoping that my colleagues in the Senate can see that or realize that.
And Congressman Quigley, any idea why Senator Manchin holds his cards very close to the vest on this and still won't commit one way or the other?
You know, it's worked for him. He's been very cautious. I can't read his mind on this. I can never predict what the Senate's going to do. I'd like to think they'd get something done before Christmas. I'm starting to be a little pessimistic about that with his last remarks.
And Congressman Quigley, I want to move to foreign policy. The Russian President Vladimir Putin putting troops on the border with Ukraine, threatening to invade. You wrote a letter to the president saying the U.S. needs to assist Ukraine and sanction Russia. Should the president of Russia invade, what is the appropriate U.S. and NATO response?
Look, first of all, that response has to be unified, dealing with the things that matter most to Putin. This is an economy about the size of New York State's, but they have gasoline, and that's what Europe needs. So he knows winter is coming from a climate point of view and from a political point of view, and using that to the maximum extent. So we have to use that in the pipeline he holds so dear against him. I also think shutting him off from the banking system, the SWIFT program, is something that would matter to him, and going after the oligarchs and the financial system of Russia. Those are the things that matter most to Putin, and I think it's the reason he's seriously contemplating this decision.
So perhaps posturing for some other interests he has, including, as you mentioned, that Nord Stream pipeline out there. And that's where we're going to have to leave it for now. Our thanks to Congressman Danny Davis, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, and Congressman Mike Quigley. And now, Brandis, we toss it back to you.